My name is Codrin Arsene. I'm the Digital Authority Partners CEO. We're going to talk a little bit about my company at the end of this presentation. For now, I just want to share my excitement when it comes down to spending the last 10 years in the healthcare digital space and seeing how much progress we've actually made over the last decade. That's why today's presentation is called Today is Great, Tomorrow is Better. I would like the conference participants to really visualize and truly understand how much progress has actually been made, but also where we are going from now on when it comes down to healthcare digital innovation, both on the patient side and the provider side, and also when it comes on to doctors. So I hope this presentation will be very helpful for anybody who operates in the digital space in healthcare. Before we move on, I want to start with a quote from the dearly departed Steve Jobs. Right? As we all know, he died almost a decade ago, but before that happened, he had this amazing foresight when it comes down to predicting where the world is going, but also where his company, Apple, is going. And he said, I think the biggest innovations of the 21st century will be at the intersection of biology and technology. A new era is beginning. As we go through today's presentation, I will bring up Apple again because they are actually one of the foundational elements when it comes down to the digital health revolution as we know it today. So very quickly, this is what we're going to cover. We're going to first talk about artificial intelligence in healthcare. And I want to start with just a simple definition, talk about the different types of artificial intelligence and specifically the AI technologies currently used in healthcare. From there, we're going to move on to digital health as we know it today. We'll talk a little bit about some of the biggest players in the market. From there, we're going to move forward towards discussing the major trends in healthcare and government and also on the patient and doctor side that are really reshaping the delivery of digital health services. From there, I want to discuss very specifically about how AI and digital health are creating this little big brother syndrome in a very good way when it comes down to how end consumers are leveraging digital health. And we're then going to talk about what the future of digital health has to bring to us. But I'm going to focus a lot of my time in this section to innovations that are being leveraged right now. They may not be perfect, but they're definitely not pulled straight out of a sci-fi novel. And finally, we're going to conclude with just a couple of minutes talking about who we are, who I am, the company that I work for, and our final remarks with regards to the future of digital health. So without further ado, let's move on to artificial intelligence. So in order to really define artificial intelligence, we need to understand what's the baseline. And the baseline is what is human intelligence. So I just pulled up the textbook definition, like how do we define intelligence? And there are two generally accepted definitions that I want to quickly cover. A, human intelligence is the ability to learn or understand or to deal with new or trying situations. And B, it's the ability to apply knowledge to manipulate one's environment or to think abstractly as measured by objective criteria. So we look at intelligence as a way to understand the world we live in and to act on it. That's the basis of human intelligence as we define it today. So what is artificial intelligence then? Well, the textbook definition for artificial intelligence is the first part that I have here on the screen, which is artificial intelligence is a computer-based system designed to solve a specific problem, which is capable of working in real time, learn from experience, and act for the purpose of achieving a predefined outcome. So in simple words, we create an AI algorithm where we know in general what that AI algorithm is supposed to do, and then we train it until that algorithm does what's intended. But what I want to actually make sure everyone understands here is that every AI scientist that you talk to and people like myself who are in the business, AI technologies in healthcare, we have a broader definition of AI. So our definition is not just that AI algorithms can eventually mimic the human mind or solve existing problems. In fact, most of us hold AI responsible to a much higher standard. And we define it not as based on the AI's ability to perform tasks that normally require human intelligence, but by the AI's ability to solve a problem or reach an outcome better than any one single human. And I think that's a very important distinction that I want you to have in the back of your mind as I'm going through this presentation. When it comes down to artificial intelligence in healthcare, my assumption is not that a specific solution is able to replace one doctor or do a task better than one doctor or a radiologist. My assumption is that as a specific artificial intelligence algorithm is trained over time, it is able to draw on the data that is being fed into the algorithm so that this AI is better than 100,000 doctors, than 100,000 nurses, than 100,000 radiologists all in one. So that's my definition of artificial intelligence. And I hope as you're listening to the next slides, you will see how some of the examples I give are actually able to deliver exactly what I think is the appropriate and just definition for artificial intelligence in healthcare. So before we move on specifically to healthcare, I want everybody to really understand there's basically 4 different types of artificial intelligence. And just so you know, these are not new. But generally, when you talk to AI specialists, they will all more or less aligned to understanding like these are the 4 stages of artificial intelligence as we know them today. So type 1 is what's called reactive machine artificial intelligence. It is the oldest version of artificial intelligence. And this would be qualified as your like dumb AI, right? It has no memory, no ability to learn. It just reacts to current situations. So the one example that you're always going to hear about, and that's the one I've included here as well, like if you look up reactive machine AI, the first example would be the Deep Blue super chess player invented by IBM in the 80s, was indeed actual chess players. So that was the reactive machine AI. Why? Because the IBM team really had to only teach that AI the rules of the chess game and nothing else, and all the permutations that comes with it. So really that reactive AI wasn't learning to play against other players. It would just apply those sets of rules to each game like it's a new one, but based on probabilities, would it be able to react on the spot to basically trap the user, trap the chess player, and learn the game. So the next sort of evolution when it comes down to artificial intelligence is what we currently call limited memory artificial intelligence. Limited memory artificial intelligence is actually most of the artificial intelligence that we know today. So when you think of AI in 2020, 99%, more than 99% of all the AIs that you see in healthcare or in any other industry is this. It's called limited memory AI. This limited memory AI or algorithm will learn from past experience, data sets, and events. So, and then it will apply those sets of rules to future events. So this is where we talk about like, most cancer diagnostics, artificial intelligence algorithms that we'll actually mention later in the presentation. This is where we talk about robot dentists or robot machines used in various medical procedures. This is where we talk about virtual nursing assistants and all the other types of AI that we know today. Now, the next stage in the evolution of artificial intelligence is what's called theory of mind. And in theory of mind is defined as machines being able to understand the needs and expectations of humans and of other machines and act accordingly. Now, as of 2020, no real theory of mind AI really exists. We have a few examples that are close to being theory of mind, but they're not, to be 100% clear. So Google DeepMind, this is an example. A couple of years ago, we all witnessed with what Google did, which is a chatbot that was able to call people or businesses and place either an order over the phone or do a reservation for a restaurant. And most of the people on the other side of the conversation would not know that they're dealing with artificial intelligence. So that's a great example, but it's not truly theory of mind. It's still operating a lot based on predefined scenarios. Sophia, if people listening or watching this conference, if you haven't heard about Sophia, you should definitely go online and look it up, Sophia Artificial Intelligence. It's an amazing piece of robot technology coming from a company in Hong Kong. And it's really great. It's a conversation for a totally different discussion, but look up Sophia. She's the closest, the example that comes to theory of mind, but even Sophia is still operating to a large extent based on the data that it has in its database without a true ability to really understand the needs and expectations of other humans. And of course, the final evolution of artificial intelligence, and pretty much anybody that works in artificial intelligence will tell you we're nowhere near it, is the self-aware artificial intelligence. When machines are fully aware of their existence and can make decisions on their own. The only place where such versions of AI exist today are in the movies. So if you watch HBO's Westworld TV show, Picard, or Altered Carbon on Netflix, these are the only places where this definition of self-aware AI truly exists. So with this in mind, let's now move on and zero in on the healthcare space. So the first thing I want to talk about is when it comes to healthcare and digital health, like what are the different types of artificial intelligence, algorithms, and technologies that one should expect? So first, you have machine learning, and I gave an example here, but there's plenty of other examples, but Kinsa is a smart thermometer that has been around for the last 6 to 8 years. And recently they came in the news because their smart thermometers would be able to pick up on flu-like symptoms, which are actually very closely related to the symptoms a patient would have if they had coronavirus. And as they started analyzing the data, they would be able to actually predict the new hot spots when it comes down to the coronavirus epidemic here in the United States. So that's a standard machine learning example where we get a massive data set of hundreds of thousands or millions of data points tied to the flu. People all over the US are using the smart thermometer to really check on their temperature. The data is fed to an algorithm. The algorithm now residing in California is able to say, okay, this is a hotspot. It could be tied to coronavirus. So you have the insight that comes from analyzing massive source of data. The next one would be neural language processing. So especially in Europe, this is actually very common, and it comes with clinical note-taking. I think I read a report about last year saying that about 24% European doctors use Alexa or Google Assistant to take notes about their patients. So that's a great example of natural language processing. The one that's very popular and well-known in the healthcare industry is the robotics. So you have surgical robots. Great example is the Monarch platform. We've seen tens of different companies currently trying to create smart robots that are currently assisting doctors with specific surgeries, but definitely in the future, there's an expectation that this technology will evolve to the point that the robot can perform that surgery on its own. And lastly, you have machine vision, which helps with really specific tasks that are being delivered where the machine needs to basically see in order to interpret the environment and then perform a specific task. So if you want to look at an example of machine vision in healthcare, go to Google, look up Swoop Aero. They are providing these amazing drones that deliver vaccines and other types of medicine, both in Australia and in different parts of Africa. Similar solutions are currently being tested in Germany and also here in the United States by the large mail carriers. Moving on, let's talk specifically about digital health now that we have an understanding both of like what AI is and this is the types of artificial intelligence that we can see in the healthcare space. So in healthcare, we can spend hours talking about different applications for AI. We can talk just about diagnostics. We can talk about artificial intelligence designed to help the doctor experience. But in today's presentation, the only specific type artificial intelligence that I want to talk about is related to digital health. So I'm zeroing in on the most important part of today's presentation. So let's talk about digital health. The first thing I want to quickly cover is like, what is digital health? There's a lot of definitions out there. I chose the HIMSS definition, and it goes something like this. Digital health connects and empowers people and populations to manage health and wellness, augmented by accessible and supportive provider teams working with flexible, integrated, interoperable, and digitally enabled care environments that strategically leverage digital tools, technologies, and services to transform care delivery. So as you can see, it's a mouthful of a definition. Technically correct, it's all encompassing, but it's a little boring for my taste. So like really what digital health is, bottom line, is medical professionals and patients, they work together towards managing a health conditions via digitally enabled tools. So digital health has been around for a long time, and in fact for the last 10 years. And as we come closer and closer to leveraging different technologies in the healthcare space, we've also seen how the VC funding community has been warming up significantly to digital health companies. So whereas back in 2010, there was about 200 venture deals, in 2018, we had about 9,000 deals tied to digital health in 2019. So bottom line, digital health is huge. It's a big industry. There's a lot of money being poured into it. And it's not like a revolutionary new industry. And I think this graph shows that very well. What I want to focus on, especially when it comes to digital health, is like, okay, so where does the money go? Right? There's a lot of money in digital health. Just last year, 9,000 startups were funded, and that's, sorry, not 9,000, but like 900 startups were funded. Like that's a lot of investment. So I want to kind of focus very like specifically on three areas. So you have digital therapeutics, you got wearable and devices, and you have big data and analytics. And most of the deals, when it comes onto digital health, they fall into these three categories. So to show you kind of how big the digital health industry is, I've chosen this CB Insights, a very nice infographic, and it shows healthcare unicorns using digital health to deliver specific solutions. And as you can see, in all of these unicorns, it means that they're valued today at more than $1 billion, right? It's a huge amount of money. And as you can see, there's quite a few companies. Like there's significantly more companies than you would expect when it comes down to digital health. And I also extracted the top 5 most funded companies. As you can see, of those 5, 3 of them are in the insurance space, and AI and insurance, as I said before, it's its own separate beast, requires its own different presentation. But what's very interesting to me is that the cancer detection, the Grail, a cancer detection startup, is at the top of the most well-funded companies. And that says something. It talks about the prospect that AI has for digitally enabled health solution. So that's why I wanted to make sure that I pulled this screen, like to have a company that got like almost $2 billion. It shows progress in the digital health space, and progress is great because with progress comes more and more investments, more and more solutions, and ultimately more and more benefits for the end user. So the next part of the presentation has to do with the smartphone, because whether we internalize this or not, whether we think about it or not, the reason why we now have hundreds of thousands of health applications in the digital health space is because of the smartphone. Really, the smartphone is the cornerstone innovation that is coupled either with other devices or operates on its own in order to create and provide a specific medical or treatment outcome. So as we all know by now, smartphone usage has increased dramatically over the last 10 years. Right now, about 2/3 of Americans own a smartphone. And this is an image that other presenters like to show whenever they talk about smartphones, and I'm going to do the same. Like on the left, you have an image of 2009, and on the right, you have an image in 2019. And of course, what you see is the big difference between the two is that on the right, pretty much everybody has a smartphone. And the reason why this matters is because healthcare solutions can now become profoundly embedded in what is one of the most intimate innovations in our lifetime. When we carry our phone with us everywhere. If you leave your phone at home, you may even have anxiety, and there's actually a medical condition for people who lose their phone or leave it behind. So the reality is that we need to talk about, when you talk about healthcare and digital health, you can not really do it outside of having an understanding of where the smartphone device and how that smartphone device plays a critical role in the delivery of healthcare and digital health in particular. So the next thing that I want to talk about is what are the converging trends that led us to where we are today in 2020 with regards to digital health. The first and most important one, I would say, is, at least here in the United States, is that the FDA, which is the body regulating new technologies in the healthcare space, particularly the ones that are leveraged in a medical setting or claim to have properties, claim to have diagnostics or treatment properties, the FDA, over the last 6 years, has been incredibly good at actually pushing through various artificial intelligence solutions that help with providing digital health outcomes. Over the last 6 years, we've seen over 50 FDA-approved solutions that are currently used both in a medical setting and also to treat specific conditions at home. When it comes down to all of these AI solutions that have been approved, they all more or less fall into three categories that I've highlighted here. One is cancer detection. The second one, which is very important for digital health, and we'll talk about it shortly, treatment of chronic conditions. And then the third one, which is still in its infancy, but it's actually very critical to the overall health patterns and delivery of quality of health and care for all of us in the future, predicting diseases. The second trend that, of course, we should definitely talk about is that doctors are more and more open to the idea of using technology in their delivery of services, which if you were a doctor, you know that 10 years ago that wasn't the case. And the same thing if you're a provider, since you know how difficult this has been for a very long time. So luckily, we're no longer there. Nowadays, you've got 93% of doctors who say mobile apps have the potential to enhance patient health. But also, I've shown here a quick survey results with medical doctors that the American Medical Association published not too long ago, just 3 months ago in February 2020. And what's very important here is to see that doctors have started using many different types of digital health tools to enable various services. So like allowing consumers to access their clinical data, using digital health solutions at the point of at the point of care, or workflow enhancements, using software in the clinical decision support process, using software to engage with their patients, using software to deliver telemedicine visits, to monitor and improve the care of their patients, and to also monitor specific treatments for efficiency. This is like night and day for where we were even like 2 or 3 years ago. And it certainly is a huge driver of the digital innovation we see in healthcare today. The reality is simple, like digital health benefits everybody. When it comes down to patients, they can have better access to expert analysis, visibility, and control over their health information, personalized medication, better patient experience and better privacy and access to sensitive medical information. Providers can be more effective and more targeted. They can provide better quality of care, and they can actually monitor and enable specific treatment options for the right conditions. And then, of course, for payers, digital health also has a tremendous amount of benefits. Digital health can reduce healthcare complexity, improve outcomes. They can also lower costs and provide better support experience. Where are we today? And from here onwards, spoiler alert, the next section will be about very specific digital innovation examples. But where we are today, we're in this amazing new and almost, if you will, uncharted territory where right now, with all of the digital health options available on the market, many of which are powered by artificial intelligence algorithms, doctors and also patients can really digitize their end-to-end experience. On the patient side, the second you have some symptoms, you can easily interact either with the internet or with a specific smart assistant to really understand what condition you may have. Based on those results, you may go and you visit a physician sooner than you would have done otherwise had you not had access to the information. When you go to the physician office visit, then you may get a treatment plan and you may be able to monitor that both remotely, directly in contact with your doctor, or also just going back online. And from there, you can move on and really, an ideal world, reach a satisfactory outcome when it comes down to your medical condition. And in all of these different points, touch points around your experience, there's at least one or multiple ways to engage digitally. And that's a very powerful thing. So before we talk about specific examples, I want to talk a little bit about Apple, because Apple as a company plays a huge role when it comes down to where we are today. So Tim Cook, the CEO from Apple, had this very, very powerful quote a few years back. He said, on healthcare in particular, in sort of your well-being, this is an area that I believe if you zoom out into the future and you look back and you ask the question, what was Apple's greatest contribution to mankind? It will be about health. So the CEO of Apple hopes that the legacy of his company would be to push the envelope when it comes down to healthcare innovation. And the reality is they've done this. They've done this for the last 6 years. These are the 3 stats that you should bear in mind when you think about Apple. In 2014, they launched the HealthKit, which was and still is a development kit fully available for developers to make health apps on the iOS platform. 3 years later, many third-party manufacturers started launching apps that integrated directly with the HealthKit, and today there are more than 320,000 health applications in the App Store. So really, we owe a lot of the health innovation, the digital health innovation today as we know it, to Apple, because believe it or not, whether we want to admit it or not, when Apple says something, it does something, the world listens, the world adjusts and goes along with Apple. So what Apple has done for the last 6 years, both when it comes down to their own devices, which is the iPhone, but also the smartwatch, and when it comes down to persuading, convincing, and influencing the world, what they've done across the board is tell everybody who's anybody in healthcare, come to our platform. Use the iOS platform to innovate and to really help everyone along the way create better healthcare solutions, more integrated partnerships, and ultimately improve the overall quality of care given to patients. When it comes down to Apple, they've done 2 things, both very important. The first thing is they have their own ecosystem, their own smartwatch that's becoming smarter and smarter over time, but also they've created this Apple Research Kit, which is really a tool helping medical researchers conduct studies using the iPhone. So they can recruit people, they can reach a lot of different people via the Research Kit, they can monitor different trial participants. So if you are in the clinical trial space and you're watching my presentation and your company hasn't used the Research Kit, make sure you look at it later on. But it's one of the important innovations when it comes down to what Apple has given the world as a platform so that new and new ideas and new clinical trials are developed. So the last thing I want to talk about when it comes down to Apple is like, where do we think Apple is going to go next? Right? They've created wearables, they've created the Apple Health ecosystem, integrated with third-party apps. What's next? What's next? And CB Insights has a very good report on this, and I think they're 100% accurate. What's next? We all think that Apple is going to move into services. So not just providing the hardware, but enabling a very simple platform where people can actually start getting treatment through the iPhone. And I, for one, am very excited for when this will actually happen. We've talked about artificial intelligence. We've talked about digital health, where it is today and how did we get here. And my argument has been, to a large extent, we have Apple to thank for it. The question now becomes, when all of these different puzzle pieces come together, where are we? Where are we today when it comes down to leveraging digital health platforms to really provide amazing solutions to patients and doctors? And that's what this section is going to talk about. The most common version, the one thing we kind of all know about if you're in healthcare is mHealth, which is the ability to really use a mobile application to either monitor a patient, help them manage their condition, or record specific data points about that patient in order to improve quality of care for said patient. So that's very clearly used as a mobile app, right? So you have either an existing condition or you're researching a condition, you're in touch with the patient via a mobile application. How do these mobile apps help? They help with education, awareness, diagnostic, disease management, data collection, telehealth, chronic disease management. All of these different things are available, and existing today on the market. Here in the United States, the National Institute of Health has offered almost 400 grants and $140 million to mHealth apps being developed in various categories like monitoring and feedback. So that's basically collecting patient data, vital signs and self-reported data, skills training. So how can a patient be helped to deal with, let's say, anxiety, stress, or any other condition, educating patients about their own conditions, behavioral therapies, and we'll talk about this in a second. And then finally, facilitating, reminding, and referring, which is basically telemedicine, especially now with the coronavirus epidemic. We all know how popular telemedicine visits have become. Another very important trend that's converging towards this integrating healthcare digital experience is at-home testing market, which you may or may not have heard about, but it's actually a big deal. So the reason why at-home test market is a big deal is twofold. One, people get tested for conditions sooner because it's more convenient. Once you can send a testing kit to a person's home and it's costing like 20, 30, 40 bucks, people are more likely to get tested. And once it's sent back, if it comes back with, let's say, a specific patient having a medical condition, they're more likely to go to the doctor. But the other side of the coin is that many of these at-home testing platforms now come with an amazing digital experience. So you get a kit, you take, let's say, a blood sample or saliva sample, whatever it is, you send it back, and then you get to log in online and you get an amazing dashboard with suggestions, recommendations, and insights about your own health. And this is very important because, as we know, as many of us know, you go to a doctor, you may or may not really understand what they're telling you. So you have this interesting new industry in the digital health, which is technology companies pairing up with doctors to create at-home testing kits and then to create the amazing insights that are then shown to users from the comfort of their homes. So some examples right now, I just chose 6 of them. 6, there are probably hundreds, but HIV, strep, allergies, urinary tract infection test, thyroid test, or celiac disease test. These are all available right now. You can either go online or go to a Walgreens or CVS store and get it, and you get tested, and you just send the kit in, and then you wait for the analysis and results usually shown through a digital experience, which is a logged in dashboard. So you have all of these different emerging trends. You have the government with the FDA approving solutions. You have the Apple experience. You have AtHome Test. So how do they all come together? Well, they come together in the most brilliant manner, as far as I'm concerned, because they're able to really help people who suffer from chronic conditions. So chronic conditions is a big chunk of what doctors actually have to deal in their day-to-day basis. I haven't been able to find any data with respect to how much doctors spend helping patients with chronic conditions manage their conditions. I've heard anywhere between 50 and 70% of the time, but there are two nuggets, two data points that show how important it is for digital health technologies to come together and really address this market opportunity of people who suffer from chronic conditions. So on the one hand, in America, you have 133 million Americans. So that's more than 30% of Americans who actually have a chronic condition. And it's more than 40% of the adult Americans. And this number is expected to grow to 157 million in the years to come. And of these people, and the average patient here, they spend about 2 hours a day managing their condition according to a medical study conducted about 8 years ago. So now we're getting to the fun stuff. Like we've had this, half of today's presentation talk about big ideas, big trends, things coming together. But the reality is that there's very specific companies that have drawn upon all of these technologies we've talked about and that have actually created amazing solutions that patients can and are using today. So the first I'm showing here, a Livecore, if people have very good memory while watching to this presentation, they will remember that I showed that FDA AI solution list, and actually Livecore is the first one. Livecore is the first AI solution ever approved by the FDA. And what Livecore does is it comes in another small device that you use in conjunction with your phone, and you can take EKG readings that are shared both with you and your phone with views of your heart. And this, of course, is tremendous. It's a tremendous innovation because not only does it tell you, like, okay, this is your heart rate, and hey, there may be some issues you have to deal with, but it stores data, and this data can always be shared with your physician of record. Another great example, Docs Docstar is a diabetes management. So if you have type 1 diabetes, there's now an amazing application where you can actually look at your glucose levels, get insights about the food that you're eating, medication, activity, all in one. Another example is Spire, which is a great actual medical device that integrates with a mobile application. And what it does is for people who have COPD, it helps these people manage their condition over time. All of the examples I used before, there were solutions that were cleared by the FDA. I want to make it very clear that in addition to these solutions, there are thousands, if not tens of thousands of other platforms in the digital health space, helping people day in and day out manage their conditions. And that's a very beautiful thing. That's an amazing thing that really, really improves the overall quality of care that any patient in America or all over the world can actually expect. So the other thing I want to quickly talk about is what's called software as a medical device. We've talked before about some applications that are mostly what I called it at the beginning of this section, the big brother. If you have a diabetes application, it acts like a big brother. It's like, okay, I got your readings and your glucose levels are low, do this, or they're too high, do this, or you haven't taken your insulin today, or whatever that may be, right? That's the big brother. But there's another type of digital innovation, digital health applications that we should talk about, and that's software as a medical device. So software as a medical device is software intended to be used for one or more medical purposes that performs these purposes without being part of a hardware medical device. In simple terms, you can have people help shape your behavior so you can manage your health conditions, or you can actually have digital health solutions that act as a medical device. And that's another thing that's really, really, really powerful and we should definitely talk about. So I've chosen a few examples here of applications that will actually work as a treatment plan. And again, there's many more than these, but these are some that I think they're really, really cool in what they do. Med Optimizer is one application that provides real-time monitoring for ADHD symptoms, side effects, and medication response, as well as analysis to enable improved treatment options. This is basically like your virtual doctor where you talk to this application day in and day out, and based on the information you provide, it's going to give you specific guidelines and recommendations that by and large would have medical validity. So see how we go from like, I'm going to teach you how to deal with your diabetes to like, hey, this data says this thing about you that has a specific medical implication. It's a huge difference. Another one is Mole Mapper, smartphone application that measures and monitors moles over time. So why this is great is if you can actually monitor this at home, if your mole gets bigger, which is oftentimes associated with getting skin cancer, then you would go in front of your doctor. So again, this is another medical as a software device applications because it would be just like going to your doctor. Right? So like, let's say I have a mole and I think it's growing. I go to a doctor, tells me, okay, monitor it, 3 months from now, come back. I'll look again. What this application does is basically, you don't have to go to the doctor. You can start monitoring on your own, take pictures. It saves all those pictures. And if 6 months down the line, it's grown bigger, then you can go and share all of this, all of the pictures over the last 6 months with your doctor so that you can actually do something about it. And the third example I'm giving is Epsmon, which is an epilepsy self-monitoring app that can track which risks are getting better over time or have worsened and what has stayed the same when it comes down to managing your epilepsy. So I've given about 9 to 10 examples right now when it comes down to digital health and how digital health solutions help different patients manage their conditions, find out more about their conditions, learn about them, and deciding where they should interact with the doctor. Remember, especially the at-home testing digital innovation part of today's presentation talks specifically about how you can get ahead of a disease. And a lot of these applications in digital health, that's what they do. Like they're getting you closer and closer to making an informed decision about when you should get in touch with the doctor and what you should do in order to manage a specific condition. But where do we go from here? Remember at the beginning of the presentation, I talked about the different phases, and we are definitely in the second phase right now, where we have limited memory artificial intelligence. So let's talk about the future, and let's talk about the immediate future and what we should expect. So this is a really cool data point, which is by 2020, there will be 20 million connected sensors. And 10 years from now, we think we'll have more than 500 billion connecting sensors and connecting all of us in a large neural network. That has a tremendous implication for the delivery of healthcare because the more data points you have, the more likely you are to get the information you need to get in front of a doctor at the right time. This is a very cool Time magazine cover a while back, and I put it here because it shows about kind of the future of medical delivery, especially in the consumer space. And really what this beautiful GIF image shows is that in various shapes and forms, health sensors will revolutionize how data is collected, interpreted, and used to improve the quality of care for all of us. The more data, the more power in the healthcare consumer's hands, and also more power in the doctor's hands. But let's think bigger. So I've chosen 4 different use cases about the immediate future of healthcare, and not only how I see it, but what we know what's happening. A lot of people talk about invisible wearables, and invisible wearables are designed in such a way that they can collect data and help with specific medical outcomes. 6 months ago, we've heard about this amazing experiment in South Korea where various people have worn smart contact lenses for, at the time of the experiment, only 10 minutes at the time, And those lenses were able to collect a lot of data about their vision and about specific eye treatment plans that a specific patient was on. This is definitely part of what the future should be. In addition to these invisible wearables, we've also seen these minimally visible wearable innovations that actually exist today and will only continue to get better over time. For example, there's a small device right now which is pretty much the size of a stamp, a mail stamp, that you can attach to you, and it will take your blood pressure throughout the day. Just think about it as being a minimally visible wearable. But invisible wearables have a huge role to play in how healthcare is being delivered to us in the future. Another one that's really, really cool and very exciting, and we've seen this in movies and in TV shows over the years, oftentimes in the context of like sci-fi stuff. But ingestible smart pills, that's a very, very powerful and exciting piece of technology. So again, about not even 6 months ago, the FDA gave clearance to an American pharma company to test the first smart pills. This is like you ingest this pill, and that pill is actually, as it decomposes in your body, it's able to pass on critical information that doctors would not have access to until and unless they actually open you up. So that's why this is so amazing. It's like the smart pills are critical to avoiding medically invasive procedures. If you are able to create and send in these pills throughout your body, you're significantly more likely to figure out what's the best course of medical treatment, which is why I'm very, very excited to see how ingestible smart pills continue to evolve over time. Another thing that's very exciting and was just published, which is about a month ago. So, Bionic Limbs, we've known about them for a long time. There are millions of people who have them around the world, and they're really, really good, especially if you're dealing with soldiers who have been impacted in the war and they lost a limb, or people who lost their arms and legs because of freak accidents. These have been around for a very long time, but what's super exciting to me about this one particular innovation that happened just last month at University of Utah is that they have developed the first, and they call it the Luke Skywalker arm, but it's basically the first limb that the brain of a person using it is actually fully interconnected with that limb. So now the limb is not just something that's attached to your body, but it's something that you can feel, like literally feel in your head and command. So that's really amazing. It's once this technology will actually be fully developed, every single person out there who does not have a limb will have this amazing, amazing ability to be fully functioning at its full capacity, and whatever that limb may be, to be really an integral part, fully integrated with the mind and body of that person. And then the other thing that, of course, many companies don't really want to talk about, but I think it's something that we should at least philosophically discuss, is when are we going to have AI doctors? And AI doctors, they're starting to exist. They're starting to be right there, right now, particularly when it comes down to diagnostics. Of course, they're not customer facing right now. These AI algorithms are usually able to really provide a high degree of confidence to a doctor or a radiologist with regards to the percentage or the likelihood of a patient having cancer. But as we're here at the end of our presentation, I just want to make it clear that as technology evolves, more and more functions, the doctors as we know them today, more and more of these functions will be replaced by artificial intelligence. And this is something we have to think as a real possibility. Whether doctors will be fully replaced by machines in our lifetime or not, I'm not sure. It is certainly something that I think we should all be mindful of. If you're working in AI in healthcare and someone asks, like, do you think AI doctors will be replaced? They're going to say, no, 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 no. The most AI is ever going to do is augment the doctor's life and have them make better, faster decisions. And certainly that's true to a point, but I think one needs to more strategically think about, like, is it possible the doctors can be replaced? And if so, under what conditions and what would happen to doctors? I can tell you that right now, where we are today, that's not a possibility that would happen anytime in the near future. But it's also something I want to make sure that people who watch this presentation video, you don't just dismiss it for the sake of dismissing it. Dismiss it in the short term because we just don't have the technology together, but don't dismiss it based on the principle that AI cannot replace doctors, because that's a false premise. As I said at the beginning of this presentation, and as I want to make sure you know at this point in the presentation as well, artificial intelligence in healthcare is like having 100,000 doctors in one, because it draws in the collective experience 100,000 or more doctors. And at least in theory, I want to make it very clear, it is possible and likely that artificial intelligence can replace doctors. It's just a matter of when. So I want to make sure everybody is fully aware of that. So we're at the end of the presentation. I'm just going to spend the last minute talk a little bit about Digital Authority Partners. Digital Authority Partners works with various healthcare organizations, and we work together in very similar ways to how this presentation unfolded. At the beginning, I talked about different use cases for artificial intelligence. Then I actually show them to you. We work with health manufacturers, so device manufacturers, to really design their digital interfaces. We do not work on the material design of a wearable device, but we have a long history working with companies to figure out, okay, if you have a smart device in the healthcare space, how is this device going to be integrating with a digital interface that's used by both doctors and patients? We work with various clients on developing healthcare mobile applications, digitize their workflow, especially in the insurance space and large pharma companies. And also we love creating healthcare chatbots. Some of our clients include Omron. So we've talked about software as a medical device and software as a way to manage a chronic condition. One of our most exciting projects I've been working for the last 3 years with Omron Healthcare is the multi-channel, omni-channel digital experience for Omron customers, where they can use the smartwatch that has an inflator cuff that takes their blood pressure, and then they can use this mobile application that we've built to really monitor their blood pressure and do the right things and getting the right insights to improve their health. And we've also worked with them on creating the health chatbot on the Alexa platform. Another company we worked with that is actually for doctors. If you're a doctor on the application, using Hippocrates application today, which is about 1 million of doctors use it. We've worked very hard over the last 3.5 years to improve the overall digital experience, to make it better, more intuitive. And that has led to Athena Health and Hippocrates see a significant increase both in revenue and physician participation and app engagement. So that's about it for now. I am Codrin Arsene. I'm the Digital Authority Partners Chief Executive Officer. It's been a real pleasure talking to you about digital health today. If you want to stay in touch, or if you have any questions about this presentation, or if you want to spinball any ideas about how to digitize your experience, how to build a chatbot, or any other topic tied to healthcare innovation, do not hesitate to reach out to me. I want to be very clear. I read every single email. I may not respond to every single email that comes to me, but I will definitely, irrefutably read every single email. So if you have some thoughts, you can reach out to me and c@digitalauthority.me, or you can come to LinkedIn, connect with me, just say, hey, I saw your presentation. Love to be in touch. I will gladly accept your connection request. And again, it's been my real pleasure attending the Health Summit and presenting to you about the future of digital health. And as I said at the beginning, I'll say it now, I am so excited about how the future of digital health will be made better by all the technology being currently leveraged. And of course, at the core of these technologies is artificial intelligence as a table stake technology. Thank you so much.